Hi, this is Chapter 10, Lesson 3 on surface area of rectangular prisms. So the things that you're going to need today is your math book on pages 763 through 766. You need a sharpened pencil, and I would like for you to have a sheet of notebook paper out and ready. Some of the things we're going to be doing are going to take a lot of space, and we may not have enough room in our books to put all the information down that I'm going to need for you to do. So the two main things we're going to be working on today is we're going to learn how to find surface area of a rectangular prism using a formula. Now it's not going to be a very friendly looking formula. It's very long, but once we break it down you'll see that it really is super simple because it just requires basic multiplication and addition. And the other thing we're going to be working on today with this lesson is we're going to look at the relationship of the area of each face of a prism and its surface area. So you're going to see how it all ties in together. All right, so let's go ahead and start with doing the vocabulary startup. So we need to figure out what the surface is. The surface is the outer face or the outside or exterior boundary of a thing. That's the outside part. That's what I like to think of it as the outside part, and the opposite would be the inside part. So think about a cereal box. The actual box, the outside part, is your surface. The Cheerios on the inside of that Cheerio box would be the inside part, so that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about surface. So area we've already had before. So if you think about it, area is the number of square units needed to cover the surface of a closed figure. Now putting it all together for surface and area, that's the sum. That means we're going to add up all the numbers of the areas of all the surfaces, which on a three-dimensional figure are called faces, and when we add them all up, we get the total surface area. So you might be thinking, well, when do we need to know how to do this, or for what reason? Well, especially around birthday time or holiday time, if you're wrapping presents, you need to know how much wrapping paper you need and if you have enough to be able to cover a box. So looking at the real world link, Roberta is wrapping a gift for her sister's quinceañera. I probably didn't say that right. She places it in a box with the measurements shown. So if you look at the box that's orange with the purple ribbon, those are our measurements, the 10, 10, and 10. It asks for number 1, what is the area of one face of the box? Well, looking at this, so I went ahead and drew a box around the front face of this. Now, if you look at the dimensions, they read 10 inches by 10 inches. So in order to find the area of one face, which means one side of the box, we would be doing area equals length times width, getting 10 times 10 equals 100. So question number 2 asks, how many faces does the box have? Now remember, you've got a front and a back, a top, a bottom, a left side, and a right side. So this box has a total of 6 faces. And number 3 asks, what operations would you use to find the surface area of the box? That means to find all the sides. Well, think about what we just got done doing. What we did is we used multiplication to find the front face, the face that we can see. But since we've got 6 of those sides, right, we would find the area of each of the 6 sides. Then at the end, we would just add them all together. So the two things that we would do, the two math operations, would be multiplication and addition. So go ahead and turn the page. So this one talks about the surface area of a rectangular prism. I really like the picture that they have over in the middle section that you see here on the screen. So surface area, they're using capital S period, capital A period. So when you see S period, A period, that means surface area. So be sure to write that down over in the work zone because they're not going to always tell you, hey, SA equals surface area. You're going to need to know that. So the surface area of a rectangular prism with the length L, the width W, and the height H is the sum of all the areas of their faces, which means we would find the area of each side of it and then add them all together. Well, there's a formula, and remember, one of the things we talked about is we're going to be using a formula to solve these problems. So the formula to do this is pretty lengthy, but it's not that hard. It reads, and I have a box around it, so I want you to go ahead and highlight it. So we're looking at this area right here. It is surface area equals 2 times the length times the height plus 2 times the length times the width, plus 2 times the height times the width. Now the reason why you have all those 2's is because, think about it, the length times the height. If you look at the picture, length times height is the front side and the back side. Since the front side is exactly the same measurements as the back side of a box, then that's why we're doing it as 2 times that. And the same thing goes for the length and the width. So when you're multiplying the length and the width, okay, on that one we're talking about the bottom and the top. That one, there's 2 of them. There's a bottom and a top, and their numbers have to be the same, which is why we're multiplying it by 2. And of course, the same goes with height and width, which has to do with the 2 sides. So since there's 2 sides, that's why we're multiplying it by 2. All right, so go ahead and look at the picture that's down here of the net. So now we're looking at this guy right over here. I'm going to put a box around it. This guy is super cool because it's really hard that when you take a box and you unfold it and you see the different parts of it to realize, well, which one's the length, which one's the width, which one's the height. When it's closed up, like it was over in this example here that I just put a box around, it's easier to tell what's the length, the width, and the height. But when you have it all unfolded, it becomes a little bit more challenging, let's say, to figure out. So when we do our examples for the next few problems, like I know I'm going to be referring back to the picture of the net that I have here that I put a box around. So what this is telling you is this. So if you look at the first part that it's talking to you about, it says front and back. So right now, you guys, I'm looking over at this area right here. So front and back. It says that in order to find the area of the front, you have to do length times height. And then since there's a front and then a back, you have to do the length times height again. But an easier way to do it is just do 2 times the length times height, because you're going to have to double it anyway. So you can see they did the same thing for the top and the bottom and the 2 sides, which is how they get their final formula of, oops, let me move that over, which is how they get their final formula of 2 times length times height, and I did it again, 2 times length times height, and I can't do this right today, 2 times length times width plus 2 times height times the width. Oops, let's go back a page. All right. All right, so looking at example number 1, it says find the surface area of the rectangular prism. Find the area of each pair of faces. Now what they did here is they found the area of each face, okay? So notice how there's 3 different colors. The colors that match, like the 2 that are green, notice their numbers are the same because that is going to be your front and your back. The top and the bottom are those peachy, beigey color ones, the ones that say 56 meters squared. But notice they're the same because they're the top and the bottom, and they've got the same measurements. And then notice the same thing goes with the blue ones, because those are your 2 sides, the left side and the right side. So starting at the front and the back. So the front and the back, we said, was the green parts. Yes. All right, so look at the green parts there. So I'm looking at the very top of my green part. So right now we're looking at this part right here. Look at the 2 numbers for the measurement of that green box. So we know that the length is 8 meters and the height of it, or the width, depending on how you want to think of it, because we're breaking it apart, is 6. Well, you would do 8 times 6. And you end up getting 48. But because you have 2 48s, because this guy down here is going to be exactly the same measurement, that's why right over here they wrote 2 times 48. So looking at the top and the bottom, so these are the beigey, peachy colored ones, the ones that read 56 squared meters. So on these right here, I'm going to look at the far right one first. So I'm looking at this guy over here. Notice how we're given the 8 meters on the top, but we're not given the side part, the width part. Well, that number, now look all the way across over here, is 7 meters. So the 2 numbers that I need for this is 7 times 8. That gives me 56. Well, since we have 2 beige colored boxes, that's why we're doing the 2 times 56 on that one. And of course, going to the last part here, the sides. Those are the blue pieces. So this one's probably one of the easier ones because the numbers are right side by side. 7 times 6 gives you 42. Since there's 2 blue parts, you're going to do 2 times 42. So now everybody look at this part right here where I've got my box that I just around the numbers. 48 plus 48. Those are my 2 green parts. 56 plus 56. Those are my beigey parts. And then my 42 plus my 42, that is my blue part. What this example is wanting you to see is that there are 6 sides, so 6 pieces to this box, so therefore there are 6 numbers. But you're going to notice though that when we work through our next example that we're only going to have 3 sets of numbers because we're basically finding the area of one part and then doubling it, because remember the top is the same as the bottom, the left is the same as the right, and the front is the same as the back. So when you add up all these numbers, you will get a total area of 292 square meters. Or I should really say a total surface area of 292 square meters. So on the Got It, they have you actually already diving in to figure out what this part is. So I'm going to go ahead and work through this one with you part of the way. So looking at this example, it says find the surface area of the rectangular prism. So they took the rectangular prism and they unfolded it. So this is called a net. So here's our formula. So what I would like for you guys to do is go ahead and write the entire formula, S period A period equals 2 times LH plus 2 times LW plus 2 times HW. And then now we're going to use the net, next to example A, to fill in the numbers that we need to for this formula. Now what I went ahead and did at the bottom right side of your screen, I went ahead and put this picture in here so you can see which ones are our L's, which ones are our H's for height, and which ones are our W's for width. And as you do more problems like this, it'll come much easier for you to figure out which number's which. So go ahead and give this a try. So use the figure over here that you see here. So we're going to go ahead and look at this guy right here. And I would like for you to also look at the example on the bottom right and see if you can plug in the correct numbers into the right spots. So go ahead and pause your video for a few seconds. Fill in the numbers, but don't work it out yet in case you got it wrong. Now when you come back, you're going to see the numbers filled in correctly. Okay, so here you can see how I plugged in all the numbers. Now I'll be honest with you, for me to figure out which numbers went where, I really did look at my picture down here at the lower part of the screen. Okay, so working this part out. So I'm thinking order of operations, right? So you're going to multiply first in between each chunk of addition. So here we've got 2 times 15 times 10. You can multiply this in any order you want. So let's do 2 times 15, that gives you 30. 30 times 10 gives you 300. Now I'm going to do that middle chunk. Now look at the numbers. They're the same exact as the previous ones. So we know that we get a 300 again there. And then look at the last ones. 2 times 10 is 20. Times 10 gives us 200. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take all our numbers and we're going to go ahead and add them up. So 300 plus 300. I like to add up 2 numbers at a time. I get 600. Plus my other 200, and this is how I get a total of 800. So the surface area of this figure is going to be 800 square inches. All right, so let's look at the next page. It asks us to find the surface area using a formula, which we kind of already did. All right, so this will be a breeze. So once again, here is our formula written right here. So we're going to go ahead and really use this part for our next example. So here it says to find the surface area of the rectangular prism. What I really like about this is the fact that they went ahead and they gave us a picture of the box, but then they went ahead and gave us a picture of the unfolded box, so you have a picture of the net that's here. All right, so it says here to find the area of each face, front and back. Now, we're supposed to use our formula, so what I want us to do is, over in your work zone, we're going to go ahead and do that. So hopefully you guys have enough room in the work zone. I know the formula is kind of long, so if you don't think you're going to have enough room, this is where you can pull out that sheet of notebook paper, and as long as you title it example number 2, so EX2, then we will be okay. So, excuse me. So surface area equals 2 times LH plus 2 times LW plus 2 times WH. Okay, so looking at our actual rectangular prism, just to look at those numbers, I'm going to go ahead and break these apart. So we know that we have to have an L number, we know we have to have a width number, and we know that we have to find a height number. So personally for me, I find it easier using the closed box to figure this out than it is for using the net. However, some of you might find the net easier for you to figure out. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the closed figure now. So looking at these, the length, which is how long the box is 7 feet. The width of the box, which is how wide it is 5 feet. And the height of the box, self-explanatory, how high or how tall it is 4 feet. So for me, I think it's easier when I list my information the way I did here over in the work zone area and then use those numbers to plug in. But you might find it a little differently where you prefer to go ahead and use the actual net that's right over here. So either way, I'm going to go ahead and plug these numbers in. So we have 2 times, my length was 7, my height was 4, plus 2 times my length was 7, this time my width is 5, plus 2 times my width, which is 5, and my height, which is 4. So now I multiply all this stuff out. 2 times 7 is 14, times 2 is going to give me 56. 2 times 7 is 14, times 5 is going to give me 70. And this one, I'll be honest with you, it's probably easier if you do 2 times 5, you get 10. And then times it by 7, you get 70. And then our last one, let's go ahead and do 2 times 5 is 10, times 4 gives us 40. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and add up all our numbers. So we've got our 56 plus 70. So when I add this guy up here, I'm going to end up getting 126 plus my other 40. Give me a final answer of, so my surface area is 166, what are we doing here, feet squared. So that's not too bad. All right, now it's your turn, but this time you guys actually get to plug in the numbers. Now what I like about this is they gave you the picture right here, and they also gave all the information you need right over in that area. So what I would really like for you guys to do is go ahead and use the L equals 7, W equals 4.8, and H equals 6 to fill in the blanks the way you should. And they tell you exactly what you need. So for front, you need a 2 times LH, and then you're going to sit there and multiply them out. So I'll get you guys started. So the first one is 2 times, the L is 7, and the H is 6. Then you're doing 7 times 6 is 42 times 2 gives you 84. So go ahead and fill in the rest, and then when you come back, we'll check your answer. So here you can see how I filled in my blanks. Now I didn't finish this all the way through, but for my first number, I have 84. Then I got 33 and 6/10. Then I got 28 and 8/10. And then I need to add up all the numbers. Now notice how I showed my multiplication right over here. So let's go ahead and add up these numbers. So I've got 33.6 plus, and I know I put these in a different order, but pay attention to how I just lined that up. Notice I lined up my decimals. 84's decimal is right there. So you can fill in the 0 if you need to, but a lot of you, I notice that you're completely forgetting to line up your decimal points. So going back to our problem, here's our decimal and our answer. We have a 7 here and an 11 there. And then I need to go ahead and add in my last number, which is 28 and 8/10. Giving me a final answer of 146 and 4/10 square centimeters. All right, now it's your turn. So you've got the formula, so I want you to go ahead and use the information that's right over here. Now remember, our length, and I'll give you this part on this one, is 4. Our width is 3, and the height is 2. So go ahead and pause the video and work this guy out using the formula, so I need to see it written out, and then everything added up and totaled up, and see what you guys come up with. All right, so here's my work worked out. So you guys make sure you check me as well. So you can see how I plugged in my numbers and how I got for each chunk a 16, a 24, and a 12. And over to the right in green ink, I went ahead and added up 2 numbers at a time, getting a final answer of 52 square meters. All right, so our last example. This one here says this is probably a Miss Nuka-Mendi word. Geode is being sent as a gift. It is packed in a box that measures 7 inches long, 3 inches wide, and 16 inches tall. What is the surface area of the box? Okay, perfect. So look what we have here. So they gave us our formula right here. And in the word problem, they went ahead and gave you what the length is, which is how long it is, what the width is, which is how wide it is, and what the height is, which is how tall it is. So, and they even gave you step-by-step information right over here. So they plugged everything in, giving you a final answer of 362 square inches for all these examples here. Okay, so let's move on. Now, you guys, I'm going to have you guys complete the guided practice. I want you to do questions 1 through 4. Now, that sheet of notebook paper that I had you pull out earlier, I want you to use that piece of paper and work on examples 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, each of these examples, I am requiring you to write, yes, that long formula, surface area equals 2 times the length times the height, plus 2 times the length times the width, plus 2 times the height times the width. All that for question number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4, and I want you to space it out. Some of you cram your writing in so little that it's hard for me to tell like what you're doing. All right, you guys, good luck with this, and when you come back in, we will discuss this and work on our cereal project or our cereal box project, so don't forget to bring in a box if you have not done so already. All right, guys, we'll see you back in class.